right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mrs. Smith here, and this is one of our very first videos as far as notes are concerned. This is going to be lesson 1-1, using variables, and a couple of things, just some housekeeping issues before we get started. One, my videos are made to help you, obviously. Keep in mind that when you're watching a video, you may stop the video to be able to write things down, or you can rewind and rewatch if you didn't catch it the first time, or you need to see that problem again. So kind of keep that in mind. Secondly, whenever taking notes, you want to be interactive in your note taking. This video isn't just a watching video. It's actually a watching and doing video. So I want you to actually, take the notes either in a spiral notebook, or if you have the ability to print off this note sheet that's right here on the screen, you can do that and write on that as well. So I don't know what your situation is at home, so therefore you can do either way. But remember, being interactive is going to be important when you're doing these math videos. So here we go. Lesson 1-1, using variables. Remember, this whole first chapter is called Tools of Algebra. Everything that you're going to see in this chapter, you probably have a little bit of prior knowledge about. There are things that you've discussed maybe in pre-algebra, or maybe in 6th grade math, or whatever the case may be. But you've had some prior knowledge. And what I'm doing is, this is the foundation of algebra. Everything that we're going to do this year is based kind of on this first chapter and things that you need to know. And if you didn't already know, algebra is kind of the basis of all the math from here on out. Whether you take geometry or algebra 2 or calculus, all of those math disciplines have algebra embedded in them. Even geometry, which is a total different entity of math, it still is based with some algebra or based on algebra. So therefore, this is really important that you understand these foundation situations. So that's why I take a whole chapter to kind of explain it. So without further ado, here we go. Lesson 1-1, notes. Very first definition is a variable. It's a letter or a symbol that represents a number. Like I said, this is going to be something that you already know. You know that a letter or a symbol represents a number. So for instance, obviously, if you see the letter X, that's a variable. You could have Y. You could have Z. Usually when I write Z, I usually put a line through it. Or maybe A, B, or C. Those are probably the 6 most used variables in the algebra world for the most part. Secondly, kind of keep in mind, you can use any letter, especially if it asks you what letter you want to use. If you get the option, you can use any letter. Some you want to stay away from. Obviously, a lowercase l, because it looks like a 1, or an O, which looks like a 0. So obviously, we don't want to do those. I'll put a slash through them. Those probably aren't good things. Secondly, I want to point out that you've really been doing algebra since you were itty bitty little, like probably kindergarten, maybe even pre-K. Seriously, Mrs. Smith, algebra since then? Absolutely. If your teacher gave you this, and they ask you to find what number would go in the box. What number would go on the box? So you as a little kid, were like, oh, this is tough. I've got blank plus 1 equals 3. And of course, now we look at it and think, oh, well, that's squeezy easy. It is 2. And you would put 2 in the box as a little kid. Well, now all we're doing, that exact same thing, but you're a big kid now. I always like to say that. It's the diaper commercial. I'm a big kid now. Have you heard it? I think it's for Pampers or pull-ups, I think. Pull-ups. Well, you're a big kid now. You don't need a box anymore. And what we do instead is replace it with a variable. So we have X plus 1 equals 3. So again, nothing new there. You guys know that. All right, so let's talk about algebraic expressions. Again, probably nothing new there. It's a math phrase that uses numbers and or variables, and contains operations. So some examples of some algebraic expressions. You could have x plus 10. That's an algebraic expression. You could get fancy and say 3x plus 7 all over or divided by 12. All right. It is a math phrase that uses numbers, here's a number, and or variables, and contains some operations. So the operation was add. Here, there's two operations, add and divide. So that's an algebraic expression. Last but not least, again, no new news, equation. An equation is a math sentence that contains an equal sign. That's the most important thing. So we have 7x minus 2 equals 26. And that equal sign right there is what makes it an equation. All right, so we need to talk about all of the words that correlate with math. You know, we have the operations add, subtract, multiply, divide, and I threw in equals as well because it's kind of important. And I think it's great because it doesn't have to always say add, but on the other hand, I think math gets complicated because there are more words than just add, subtract, multiply, and divide in math. So I want you to take a moment to think and list as many words as you can, make a column in your notes, or you might have the sheet in front of you, to think of how many words that you know represent the word add, or maybe the word addition. I'm going to put the TIO in there, or subtract, subtraction. You get the idea. So multiply and divide. So for instance, add. Maybe you would also say plus. Maybe for subtraction, you might say minus. So I'd want you to take a few minutes and try to think of all of the different words you may have for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and equals. So stop the video right now. Give yourself some time to think of some, and then start the video when you're ready. All right, here we go. All right, so obviously, hopefully you've had some time to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, equals, and we are going to talk about some of those words. So I'm just gonna put down some that I know. If you were in class with me, usually you're giving me answers, but for addition, plus, sum, that's a good one to remember, sum. How about more than? Or maybe just the word and you have to be careful. So I'm going to put it in quotes because sometimes if you're talking about, some things, the word and might not mean addition, but a lot of times in word problems, the word and could mean addition. All right. How about increase? Or together? Combined. Addition, we have up there. I can't think of any more right now. If you don't have some of those down, make sure you add those to your notes. All right, so let's talk about subtraction. We already said minus. How about takeaway? Or maybe less than. Decrease, kind of goes with the increase here, the decrease. Difference. Reduce. Fewer. There's some I came up with or thought about. And I guess probably right now is a good time to give you a little Mrs. Smith tidbit. The Mrs. Smith tidbit is she is not a very good speller. I have never been very good with spelling. It has never been my forte. Woohoo, she can spell. It's never been. So if you happen to see that I made a spelling mistake, I'm apologizing now. I'm sure I will make lots of spelling mistakes. And I love the person who created spell check. I just could kiss that person. Give them a great big smooch and a hug because, wow, they have saved my life. Before spell check, we used to have, those old things called dictionaries. I always had one with me wherever I went because I am just not a good speller. But thank goodness somebody invented spell check and saved me a whole bunch of time. But I do have a few dictionaries still laying around that I use on occasion. So here we go. Moving on, multiply. What words did you say for multiply? Usually the first one that comes to mind for kids is times. How about the word product? That's going to be a good one. Some product, some for addition, product for multiplication. Some people forget those or they confuse those two, so be careful. The word of sometimes means multiplication. And you don't always see of, like if you are reading a word problem and it says of, sometimes it doesn't mean multiplication, but it can be. Same thing with the word by. So, if they're talking about, the Call of the Wild by, oh, shoot. That was a bad example. I can't think of who. Oh, Jack London. I think Jack London or Call of the Wild. Obviously, Jack London is the author. By does not mean Call of the Wild by Jack London. Does not mean multiply Jack London by Call of the Wild. So that's why I put it in quotes because, the word by doesn't always mean multiplication. Sometimes the word twice means multiplication. And actually that kind of has a hidden meaning because it has a number and a operation. So 2 times, twice, 2 times. Sometimes the word per or sometimes the word each means some kind of multiplication. Like, you're on Amazon and you're going to buy, I don't know, something fun. And they'll say, they're $4.99 each. So if you buy 3, it'd be 3 times $4.99. So that each means multiply. Sometimes you have the word, whoops, my screen's kind of jumping. Sorry about that. Double. Or, of course, along that line's triple. Those mean multiplication. Double would be multiplied by 2. Triple would be multiplied by 3. All right. Divide, what'd you come up with? Usually ones that people think about are quotient. Please realize that a fraction is division. If you remember back up here, I said 3x plus 7 divided by 12. But doesn't that look like a fraction? It does. And so I replaced that fraction bar with the word divide because I know a fraction bar means divide. Maybe you're going to split something in 2. That could mean division. Just the word division would work. How about half? Half means you're going to divide it by 2. One of those hidden meanings like twice. Twice means you're going to multiply by 2. If you're going to cut something in half, you're going to divide it by 2. How about the word out of? How about the word into? How about the word separate? Separate or break apart? Any of those all mean division. And last but not least, we have the word equal. Equal has lots of different words that refer to equals, and maybe it is equivalent or same or total. Maybe you just need the answer. That means, equal. Even. How about solution? Or in all. Some of those words like is, and I'm going to put it in quotes. Whoops, my quotes kind of went off to the side. Let me see. See if I can do this fancy stuff, fancy business. Yeah, there we go. And go back to here. Is, put my quotes a little closer, or was. You're going to see in problems that sometimes the word is indicates an equal sign. Yield. Different one that you don't hear very much, but it can mean equals. Altogether. Ooh, I ran out of room, but I'm going to just put it on here. Or final. Any of those would work. So that gives us a pretty good list to get started with. Once we get that started, then you can add to it as we do words, and you might notice, or you can use this as a nice reference when you're going into algebraic expressions and equations and you see some of those words and you think, oh shoot, what did that mean? And maybe you'll run into a word that you can add to your list. So that's all we're going to get to today. So that's lesson 1-1, the beginning part, really concentrating on variables, algebraic expressions, equations, but then the words of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and equals. Save these notes. We're going to add to them tomorrow. All right. Have a good one. See ya.